And we're back to horrible. Yeah, The Terror of Tiny Town. Not a good movie. It's not one that most people have probably heard about, at least unless you know you're into film. But if you haven't heard about it, it's this really old movie. Pretty much, it's about it's supposed to be a satire of westerns, but there's really nothing it's satirizing. It's just a movie about short people being in a western. That's it. It's a whole town of short people, and it's just like this isn't really that funny because none of it is really a joke. It's just, hey, what if we did a cowboy movie but with short people? And even then, it's not really trying to be a joke. Like even because the movie opens up with a little like intro, trying to, I guess get the audience to understand that this is the movie that they made, and they even go out of their way to say like, "Oh, it's got all the drama of a serious cowboy movie." So I'm like, "Okay, so you're not trying to make this funny, okay?" But then the movie feels like it's trying to make it funny because, hey, look, it's short people, and aside from like the horses, most of the stuff is, still the size of, how they would be like in a regular western. Like you got a whole thing where a character walks under a saloon, like instead of like the doors, opening up, it's just he walks through the little doors that they have there, and that's the joke. Except again, it's not really much of a joke because the whole thing is literally just a western, but with short people in it, and yeah, that's not really funny at all. And I don't understand why it was supposed to be funny, other than, I guess they assume that, hey, if it's short people, it's gonna be funny just on the basis that it's short people, which really shows how bigoted people were back then. But you know, I've seen other movies or shorts or whatever from this era that the whole thing is based on like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we put this race in here or whatever, and it's very racist, sexist, whatever you can call it, from that time period. And even those movies try to make a joke out of it. Like you can tell that they're trying to make it funny. I mean, even if it's not funny now because it's offensive, they try. And this movie really doesn't. It's just playing it all so straightforward that you have to wonder, like, okay, what's the joke? Like, even if you were in that time period where people weren't really calling this stuff out for what it was, you'd have to ask yourself, how funny can this be for a whole hour? I mean, I guess in a way it's kind of funny that in a movie that's supposed to be about short people, that it runs short for a film. Though granted, this was not. I mean, it was short even back then, but it was still like a fairly standard length for a lot of movies at the time. So even then, the joke's kind of lost, and that's really the whole movie. I mean, if you're wondering what the plot is, you shouldn't. It's like if you've seen a western, you've seen this movie. It's it's got the good guy, it's got the bad guy, it's got the love interest. The bad guy is manipulating the town to hate the good guy, but again, it's nothing that you haven't seen before. You've if you've seen your western, you've seen this movie, and all it is just it's supposed to be funny because the main characters are short, or you know, of course they use a more offensive term throughout the movie, but hey, they use it, so whatever. And yeah, it's just boring. I mean, by around 40 minutes, I was already falling asleep. I mean, granted, that's already 2/3 of the way in, but you know, at a 60-minute movie, if I'm falling asleep, that's a problem. I mean, this was just boring. There was nothing that was trying to be funny, nothing that was trying to mock, like the whole Western setup. Like they could have easily done a whole joke about how silly Westerns are. If you take out certain elements, but no, it's still trying to play it all serious, and we're just meant to kind of laugh that it's short people, but at the same time, like the movie mentions, it's supposed to be serious. So if it's serious, then why aren't we more involved? And I don't know. It's just a giant mess. I mean, there's really not much I can say about this other than it's not a funny movie. It's definitely a really boring one. It's one of the most boring I've ever seen. Um, I don't know if I'd say it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen because it certainly didn't piss me off that much. But if someone ranked it as one of their worst movies or their worst movie, I couldn't really blame them because it's an offensive movie. One that isn't really all that funny. I mean, like I said, even if you were look at it from that time period, like, okay, look, they weren't gonna call this shit out. It was gonna be offensive no matter what. Whatever. They don't make any jokes even for that time period that make it kind of like, okay, this is an uncomfortable laugh, but it's a laugh nonetheless. It's just a long joke that goes nowhere because they also tried making it serious, and again, it's not really funny. Like it'd be like if they were to do like if something like let's say, and of course this would be racist. Imagine if they made like a Marvel movie. Well, you know what? Let's say Black Panther. Imagine if Marvel made Black Panther not as a with the intentions of making it as a good movie, but making it as a way of like having some kind of novelty of like, hey, what if we made a black a black superhero movie where the entire cast was black instead of white? Wouldn't that be funny? Uh, that's kind of what you're getting at here. Granted, with Black Panther, that was not the intention. It was just telling a good story with a cast that related to the subject matter. But if their approach was just, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we made Iron Man but with black people? That's kind of how Terror of Chinatown works. Uh, but again, putting aside that it's offensive, it's also just not funny. And that's really all I got for this. It's not a funny movie. It's boring. It's, again, not one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but I wouldn't really argue if anyone else did. But yeah, it's not worth your time. And, even if it is short, well, so is the quality. Oh well.